Number 10. John Torrington Ice Mummy. Back in 1845, two ships set sail from England in search of the Northwest Passage. The ships carried 134 crewmen between them. However, they got stuck and none of the men ever returned home. This disaster is known today as the Lost Franklin Expedition, and it's one of the most tragic and epic Arctic shipwrecks in history. Nobody survived, there was a lot of cannibalism going on, and the final days of these brave sailors must have been absolutely terrifying. The remains of those who died on the Franklin expedition were discovered in the 1980s. Well, not all of the bodies, but definitely a few. One of the bodies found belonged to John Torrington, an ice mummy with his face still frozen in his final minutes of terror when archaeologists freed him from his icy tomb on Baffin Island. It was thanks to John Torrington and the other ice mummies from the ships that the experts were able to piece together what exactly happened to these guys. They had suffered from lead poisoning, many of them had starved to death, and yes, the cannibalism was confirmed by knife marks on several human bones. But what's really interesting is that even though the ice mummies were found in the 80s, the actual ships that got stuck in the ice, the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror, were not discovered until 2014 and 2016, with a Canadian archaeology team exploring the interior of the HMS Terror for the first time only in 2019. If you're wondering why the bodies weren't found in the wreckage, it's because they had tried to escape and get to safety. But of course, they were literally in the worst place to try and do that, and they died in the attempt. Number 9. Microscopic organism. Scientists have thawed a living microscopic organism out of the Russian permafrost. This tiny organism survived for about 24,000 years solidified under the ice, and it may hold the secret to cryogenically freezing human tissue one day in the future. Scientists already knew that organisms could live for a couple hundred years. What nobody thought was that an organism could live frozen for over 20,000. According to Stas Malavin from the Institute of Psychochemical and Biological Problems, this is the most definitive proof as of yet that multicellular animals could potentially withstand extended periods of time in cryptobiosis, which is a fancy word for being frozen. But just what kind of organism was this? It's known as a rotifer, or a type of tiny plankton found in freshwater and saltwater. The researchers found the small planktonic organism by using a rotating drill and taking samples from 11 feet, 3.3 meters underground, at the bottom of the Alizea River, where the permafrost maintains a consistently cold temperature of approximately 14 degrees Fahrenheit all year round. Researchers found several dozen of the organisms, and once thawed, they quickly fed on bacteria and reproduced colonies of clones. This is one of the only living things ever found to be capable of surviving frozen for a long time. There's a type of Antarctic moss that can be regrown after spending 400 years trapped in ice, and there are nematodes that can be revived after spending 30,000 years trapped in sediments, though nematodes are single-celled and pretty simple. Number 8. Prehistoric arrows. Archaeologists have unearthed roughly 70 arrow shafts, plus some textiles, shoes, reindeer bones, and much more on the side of a mountain in Norway, about 240 miles, 386 kilometers from the capital city of Oslo. Based on carbon dating, we know that the oldest of these arrows came from the year 4100 BC. That's about 6,000 years ago. The most recent arrow dates back to 1300 AD, only about 700 years ago. What's truly amazing if you think about it is that for about 5,000 years, the people living in Norway used the same kind of weapon, simple arrows and a simple bow, and they even hunted reindeer in the same place. Then, all of a sudden, everything changed. The reindeer vanished and arrows were replaced with nuclear weapons. Because the arrows were discovered in a melting ice patch, researchers are a little confused. Normally when a patch of ice melts, everything underneath it comes from around the same time. But the artifacts revealed by the melting ice here ranged throughout a period of about 5,000 years. Older artifacts are supposed to be at the bottom of a chunk of ice, with newer artifacts being at the top. But this wasn't the case here. The arrows were all mixed up and had to be dated in a lab. Some of the arrows still had their sharp heads attached, with researchers saying they were made from a variety of different materials including iron, mussel shell, and bone. Number 7. Swiss artifacts. Global warming just keeps revealing artifacts that were once lost, like the amazing relics found in Sweden because of the melting glaciers. Because Switzerland is a country filled with mountains and ice, it's no surprise that some of the best things found come straight from Switzerland and the Swiss Alps. It's currently believed that by 2090 there won't be a single glacier left in Switzerland, meaning way more artifacts. One of the coolest artifacts uncovered recently was a moccasin from the Stone Age. Then there was a wooden statue believed to come from 100 BC, complete with a flat, featureless face and a creepy body with no arms. There was even a hiker who stumbled upon the lost possessions of a Neolithic hunter who lived 3,000 years ago. He discovered leg coverings, fragments of a bow, and an arrow case that would have been used to store arrows for hunting on the go. What else do you think the melting ice will reveal in Switzerland? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons too. Number 6. Too much mercury. Just this year, researchers found the melting ice in Greenland to contain a ridiculously high level of mercury. It's raised concerns over where exactly this volatile element comes from. The researchers published their findings in the journal Nature Geoscience, claiming that the Greenland ice sheet could be a source of pure mercury. And if you're wondering why this is so alarming, it's because mercury is one of the most powerful neurotoxins known to man. We've all heard of mercury poisoning at one time or another, and it's no joke. Samples of meltwater taken from the ice sheet in 2018 have shown that mercury levels in Greenland are actually comparable to some of the more populated places on Earth. Here's what makes mercury so alarming. It persists almost everywhere and cycles between the atmosphere and the environment. But mercury bioaccumulation is a huge issue inside of ecosystems. Mercury comes from volcanoes, coal plants, mines, things that are already terrible for the environment. When small organisms like plankton accidentally consume mercury, they pass it on to larger organisms who have also already consumed mercury. What this means is that when the big fish eats the medium fish, after the medium fish eats the small fish, the big fish consumes the largest volume of mercury and suffers the most devastating effects. For example, freshwater bass and swordfish are known for accumulating up to 1 million times more mercury than what's found in the water around them. The big deal with what's happening in Greenland with mercury being found inside the ice is that as the ice melts, it'll release huge deposits of mercury into the world's oceans. And that, my friends, is bad news. Number 5. The biggest iceberg. In Antarctica, the biggest piece of ice ever recently broke apart from the continent and drifted away as an iceberg. It's known as Iceberg A76, and according to NASA, it's the largest iceberg currently floating anywhere on our planet. It's a type of tabular iceberg, named as such because from the air it looks a lot like a table. But it's a very large table. The iceberg is roughly 105 miles, 169 kilometers long, and 15 miles, 24 kilometers wide. It's bigger than Rhode Island and is bobbing around in the ocean, slowly melting. Even though the iceberg is melting, it won't make the sea level rise. This is because it's already displacing a huge amount of water. It's like an ice cube in your drink. Even as the ice cube melts, your drink doesn't overflow. Laura Garish from the British Antarctic Survey even said that the iceberg is just part of the natural cycle and probably wasn't even caused by climate change. However, this doesn't mean we don't need to be afraid of Antarctica getting warmer. There's still enough ice on the continent to raise the global sea level by 200 feet, 61 meters. Number 4. Cave bear. The immaculate remains of a cave bear from the Ice Age have been found in Russia, and they are amazing. The cave bear is the only one of its kind to ever be discovered with soft tissue. These creatures are normally found as nothing more than fossilized skeletons. The discovery of the bear was made by a couple of reindeer herders in the far north of Siberia in the Lyakovsky Islands. Scientists from the Northeastern Federal University in Yakutsk even said that the bear still had its nose intact, which is something unheard of in a species that has been extinct for 15,000 years. But what exactly is a cave bear? This animal lived around the same time as the woolly mammoth, the woolly rhino, and the saber-toothed tiger, and it was a monster of an animal, like a normal bear but much bigger and much stronger. But just like all of these other prehistoric animals, they went extinct at the end of the last ice age. This particular bear got trapped in the ice sometime between 20,000 and 40,000 years ago when it died. And even though researchers haven't actually been able to visit the site because it's so far and remote, they're hoping that there could be even more incredible animal remains frozen under the permafrost, just waiting to be discovered. By finding more animals in such great states of preservation, scientists are that much closer to potentially bringing them back to life. Number 3. Frozen Viking box. Glacial ice melting along the side of a mountain passage has revealed a plethora of ancient Viking artifacts. One of the artifacts has been a bit more intriguing than the others. Researchers found a wooden box with its lid still firmly shut. It once belonged to a Viking of unknown origin living in ancient Norway. Archaeologists opened the lid to reveal what was hidden inside. When the researchers opened the box, they were shocked to discover that it did not contain gold, treasure, jewelry, or anything else that we might see as valuable. Instead, the old Viking box was carrying pieces of beeswax. In other words, the box contained nothing but boring old candles. Kinda disappointing. Researchers with the Glacier Archaeology program dated the box back to between the years 1475 and 1635. This means it's not even that old, and it may not have even belonged to an actual Viking if the box is only 386 years old at the low end of the spectrum. The Vikings had already been gone for 400 years. Instead of being some brave Viking warrior's candles, the beeswax in the box was most likely produced by a farmer in the summer and then transported across the icy path, where it became lost and frozen until archaeologists dug it up. Number 2. Mysterious ice ship. There's been a ship discovered in the ice of Antarctica, but this is not your typical shipwreck. From what we can understand, the ship is about 400 feet, 122 meters long, and trapped underneath the ice and snow. The massive structure was detected using Google Earth. The boat looks oddly like a cruise liner with chimneys sprouting out from its middle and cabin windows all along the sides of it. Unfortunately, no one actually knows what the object found on Google Earth is. It could absolutely be a monster of a boat, somehow tipped on its side and covered in snow. But if that's the case, how did it vanish without anyone realizing it? If a cruise liner had gone missing in Antarctica, everyone would know about it, right? Someone would have seen something. Some people have suggested the mysterious ship could be a leftover technology from a Nazi base. Others say it could have something to do with extraterrestrials. We just don't know, and it's not like anyone can pop down quickly and take a look for themselves. Number 1. Ice 19. In 2021, scientists identified the 19th form of water ice. According to Live Science, the ice is incredibly rare. It's composed of exotic crystals that form at very low temperatures and very high pressures. Researchers say Ice 19, as it's being called, only exists in laboratory experiments. But they also say it could help humans to understand more about what's going on deep inside of the Earth's mantle and on other planets and moons in the solar system that are significantly colder than Earth. Naming a new type of ice is not a simple process. It must have a completely unique crystal structure. Scientists also need to identify the simplest repeating structure of the ice, where all of the atoms are inside of that structure, and what the symmetry of the structure is. Ice is actually really complicated. For example, Ice 1 has 6-sided crystals and is commonly found all over Earth. This is why snowflakes are shown with 6 sides. Ice 19 only has 4 sides. It can also only be created in a setting of -247 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not a normal temperature to be found on our planet, but it is a fairly average temperature in space. By understanding Ice 19 and how it functions, scientists could figure out how celestial bodies such as Uranus and Neptune are put together. Number 10. Antarctic UFO. In Antarctica, there's a UFO mystery. What appears to be a troop of military vehicles hidden in the snow has been spotted using Google Earth. The images on Google Earth show what seem to be the crash site of an unidentified object being guarded by 4 equally unidentifiable objects, looking a lot like army tanks. Fun fact, these are actually known as UGOs, or unidentified ground objects. While they may have been flying at one point, they're now firmly grounded. But just what on earth could this image be showing us? There's a huge skid mark in the snow as if the object impacted the ground and then slid to a stop. And it looks like army vehicles went to intercept it. Even more mysterious is that images taken just 2 months prior showed the crash, but no military vehicles. The vehicles must have arrived later, though nobody can quite understand why they were left in the snow for everyone to find on Google Earth. Shouldn't they have gone back to wherever they came from after their standoff with the unidentified object? Then there's the actual scale to worry about. Judging by the size of the objects on Google Earth, each supposed tank would be over 7 feet in length, far more gargantuan than anything ever created by human hands. Plus, there are no tracks in the snow to show how the vehicles got there. So far, nobody's been able to explain anything about this strange Antarctic mystery. Do you think there could be extraterrestrials or UFOs in Antarctica? Let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe if you're new here. Number 9. Hundreds of corpses. There are hundreds of corpses frozen in Antarctica that scientists have yet to discover. According to Martha Henriquez, who worked on the Frozen Continent series for the BBC, many of the people who die in Antarctica are left behind, and their bodies become buried in the snow, never to be found again. Some are discovered several decades after perishing. Some are even found hundreds of years later. Antarctica is the coldest and windiest place on our planet, making it a pretty bad place to lose a body. Take the Terra Nova expedition, which went out between 1910 and 1913. The British explorer Robert Falcon Scott and his team of 4 men wanted to reach the South Pole before anyone else. Unfortunately, when they got there, they realized a Norwegian explorer had beaten them to the punch. So Scott and the rest of the team turned and went back. They all died inside their tent only 11 miles from the nearest food depot. 2 of their bodies were never uncovered, but 2 of them were found a few months later. Because the conditions were so miserable, there wasn't much that could be done for the bodies, and so they were left behind. But here's where things get really interesting. Trying to find the corpses of the expedition today would be a logistical nightmare because they have undoubtedly traveled miles from where they had originally dropped dead. This is because the ice surface of Antarctica shifts with time, causing displacement. Those bodies are probably lost forever. Number 8. Extraterrestrial amino acids. Astrobiologists working from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center recently found a diversity of extraterrestrial amino acids inside of a meteorite. The meteorite was taken from the Nansen ice field in Antarctica by researchers from Belgium and Japan back in 2012. The meteorite is called Asuka 12236 and was found to be packed full of amino acids such as glycine, isovaline, glutamic, and alanine. If you're not sure what amino acids are, they're basically the building blocks of proteins. We need amino acids to survive. But just what exactly are they doing in space rocks? Well, it's a bit of a mystery. Nobody's really sure how these organics evolve on things like asteroids where most meteorites come from. And yet there's a whole collection of space rocks rich in carbon known as CM chondrites, just like this Antarctic meteorite. Researchers believe that by studying these amino acids more completely and understanding what they're doing inside of seemingly lifeless rocks hurled to our planet through space, we will unlock the secrets of the universe and maybe even the secret to life itself. Number 7. Mysterious Ice Ship. A giant and very mysterious ship that appears to either be made out of ice or blanketed in snow was recently discovered in Antarctica, allegedly over 400 feet in length. The ship was spotted by someone using Google Earth. It was found roughly 100 miles off the coast of Antarctica, sitting on an iceberg. Others who saw the giant ice ship were quick to point out its striking resemblance to a cruise liner. It really does look like some kind of cruise vessel that would be giving tours around the Greek islands. It even has a bunch of window shapes running across its hull, as if viewing windows for personal cabins. But the big question is, why would the giant boat be lying sideways on an iceberg? It doesn't make any sense. One of the most reasonable explanations is that the ship was actually wrecked and the ice simply grew over it. It could have been a vessel used in battle during World War II that got lost and crashed in Antarctica. It could have been part of a secret Nazi base on the continent. The truth is that nobody knows and no officials have come forward to identify what the bizarre ship is or how it came to be resting on the center of an iceberg. And to be totally honest, we probably won't know the origins of the mysterious ship until the iceberg melts and the ship slips off. Number 6. The world's largest iceberg. Speaking of icebergs, the largest iceberg in the entire world has just slipped off the Run ice shelf in Antarctica. But slipped off is a pretty gentle word. The iceberg really broke off, becoming a floating piece of ice about half the size of Puerto Rico. The iceberg is known scientifically as A76, and according to the New York Times, it's separated naturally from Antarctica. It measures 1,668 square miles, making it a bit larger than the last big iceberg to break off from the shelf, A23A, which formed in 1986 and had a total area of 1,500 square miles. As for the biggest iceberg in recorded history, that was B15, which broke off the Ross Ice Shelf, still Antarctica but a totally different area, in 2000 and measured over 4,200 square miles, over twice the size of A76. And before everyone starts freaking out about climate change, scientists are saying that the separation was natural and may not have had anything to do with the climate. They also say the iceberg won't add to the rise of the sea level while it melts because it's floating ice and already displaces the same volume of water. It's like ice melting in your cup. Melting ice can't make your cup overflow. Christopher A. Schumann from the University of Maryland compared the new iceberg to a fingernail clipping, saying Antarctica is basically just getting a manicure. Number 5. Fossilized Sea Monster. A large and terrifying monster has been discovered in Antarctica. It's what scientists are calling an elasmosaur, and is further proof that Antarctica was once a thriving ecosystem filled with dinosaurs, flying creatures, and sea monsters. The elasmosaur navigated the oceans during the Cretaceous period alongside countless dinos. The fossil discovered by scientists on a small and desolate island off the coast of the Antarctic Peninsula belonged to the heaviest elasmosaur currently on record. This beast weighed over 15 tons. Even more amazing, the elasmosaur is one of the only complete reptile fossils from ancient times ever found on Antarctica. But just what was an elasmosaur other than a large and terrifying reptile? According to National Geographic, elasmosaurs were part of the plesiosaur family, representing the largest sea creatures that lived about 66 million years ago. The creature looked a lot like a modern manatee mixed with a giraffe and an anaconda, with a little bit of Loch Ness Monster thrown in for good measure. They had 4 flippers and could probably grow to be over 40 feet in length. And considering how big the animal was, it would have needed a lot of food to eat, suggesting that before the huge extinction event 66 million years ago, the area around Antarctica had been teeming with enough wildlife to keep a large population of predatory elasmosaurs happy, with lots and lots of meat. What do you think about this incredible prehistoric beast? Let me know in the comments down below. Number 4. Snow Pyramid. There just might be a giant pyramid covered with snow in Antarctica. This is either a new and amazing discovery or a tasteless hoax. The issue is that the pyramid was discovered using Google Earth. The good news is that it definitely looks like a massive pyramid. The object seems to be made of some kind of black obsidian, with its point and 2 of its sides exposed from the snow. The other 2 sides are still covered. But that's another thing. The pyramid has 4 sides that look identical to the Great Pyramid of Giza, and it would be a pretty difficult thing for nature to try and mimic. As you may already know, nature doesn't really build in symmetry. At least not when it comes to random rock formations in the middle of Antarctica. This thing clearly looks as if it were made by intelligent hands. The photos of the pyramid are baffling people all around the world, and not a single mainstream scientist has come forward to either debunk or confirm what we all can see is obviously a pyramid. The issue is that nobody knows who could have possibly built the pyramid or when. It's obviously quite old. We do know that there may have been ancient civilizations living in Antarctica upwards of 10,000 years ago. It could be a leftover ruin. One of the more outlandish claims is that the pyramid is only one part of the lost City of Atlantis, which is actually on the Antarctic continent but has never been explored because nobody has known where to look. Number 3. Mysterious photographs. In 1915, an expedition from New Zealand to Antarctica known as the Ross Sea Party tried to establish a supply depot for explorers. Unfortunately, they had some issues with their ship. 6 men ended up stranded on Antarctica with almost no hope of being saved. They spent 3 years struggling just to stay alive before finally being rescued. 98 years after the harrowing ordeal, traces of their time spent in Antarctica were finally found. It happened while conservators were restoring one of the supply huts the party had squatted in. What they discovered were 22 unprocessed negatives inside of a box. They had been left there by the Ross Sea Party. After nearly 100 years, the negatives were still viable. Photographs were developed using the negatives, telling an eerie tale of their journey gone wrong. The photographs didn't show any dramatic moments. They didn't photograph anybody practicing cannibalism or something frightening, but the still shots are fascinating nonetheless, showing the men on the ship, presumably before disaster struck. So far, these are some of the oldest modern relics found on the continent. Number 2. Antarctica itself. One of the most interesting discoveries ever made in Antarctica was Antarctica itself. It happened 200 years ago, and depending on who you ask, the answer to who found Antarctica is a little different. A Russian expedition in 1820 may have spotted Antarctica first. Either that, or it may have been a British expedition 3 days later. At the time, explorers were hunting for what was then known as Terra Australis Incognita, translated to unknown southern land. Everyone knew there was something at the bottom of the world, they just didn't know what. James Cook searched for it for between 1772 and 1775. He came up empty-handed. At the time, he claimed that it was so risky to try and find the mysterious land at the end of the world that nobody would ever venture farther than he had, and that the lands would never be explored. According to National Geographic, James Cook had come within 80 miles of Antarctica's coast. Antarctica was finally spotted in 1820 by both Russians and the British. The Russians were technically the first ones to find Antarctica and see it with their own eyes, but the first person who ever stepped foot on Antarctica was an American named John Davis in 1821. So who was first, the man who spotted it or the one who touched it? Number 1. Proof of mass extinction. Christian Sitter, the curator of vertebrate paleontology at the Burke Museum, recently spent 2 months in Antarctica looking for fossils. What he discovered is proof that there was a mass extinction prior to 250 million years ago. During his work in Antarctica, Christian found the fossils of animals that may have been closely related to reptiles. He also found fossils belonging to distant relatives of amphibians. But even more shocking is that he claimed to have discovered fossils of animals that are distant relatives of mammals. Some of these animals were apparently digging burrows back in the Triassic period. In some places he found footprints, and in some places he found plant material. But what does all this information mean? It means that there was a very active ecosystem on the continent of Antarctica 250 million years ago. There also may have been an unknown extinction event that caused them all to die. Still, researchers don't know what species many of these fossils belong to, or how relatives of mammals were found when mammals didn't start evolving until after the death of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. It's a total mystery, and one that paleontologists are working hard to solve. Number 10. Alien underwater base. There have been some strange objects found scattered across the Antarctic ocean floor, and some say they could be part of a secret alien underwater base. This shocking discovery was made by alien life observer Scott Waring. Using Google Maps, he discovered that in the Antarctic region, there are bizarre anomalies just off the coast. According to Scott himself, there's nothing ordinary about the objects and shapes he discovered, and they really do stand out from the rest of the icy environment. Additionally, he discovered that some parts of the water on Google Maps have actually been pretty blurred, preventing people from seeing what's really there using satellite images. He said, "I've used Google Maps to zoom into the Antarctica region, and they are right there. You can see a lot of other anomalies sitting in between the snow and ice caps on the nearby bay." Here's what else Scott did. He used Google Maps to travel back in time to the 1980s, thereby being able to compare older pictures of Antarctica with those taken recently. What he found was that the base had been sitting underwater the whole entire time, with each large structure located less than a mile from the next one. Unfortunately, there's no evidence to back up any of these mysterious claims other than the fact that these objects underwater do sort of look like they were man-made. But by whom? If it is indeed an alien base that extraterrestrials are using to keep out of sight near the South Pole, the big question is, what could they possibly be using the base for? Do you have any ideas? Number 9. Oldest pyramids in the world. The oldest pyramid on Earth is hidden under the snow of Antarctica. At least, that's what conspiracy theorists are claiming. They say that a mysterious pyramid-shaped object discovered near the Shackleton mountain range is proof that some race of beings constructed a megalithic pyramid on the continent far before any other civilization had been there. And to be quite honest, there could actually be some truth to the theory. After all, the satellite images taken of the pyramid structure are very real. Sure, it could be a mountain covered in snow, but it does have 4 slanted sides just like the Great Pyramid of Giza. In fact, it actually looks very similar. And as most of us already know, nature doesn't really make a whole lot of things using extremely straight lines and perfect geometry. The theory was first discussed on the History Channel in an episode of the famous show Ancient Aliens. According to what David Childress, professional ancient astronaut theorist, said on the show, if the structure does prove to be a man-made building, it'll likely be the oldest pyramid on the planet. How old is it? Chances are it dates back to before there was ever even ice on the continent, which would mean tens of thousands of years. As for who built it, some say aliens, some say a secret ancient society. Number 8. The Lost City of Atlantis. The Lost City of Atlantis may have actually been located on the continent of Antarctica. One of the craziest theories about the origins of Atlantis says that about 12,000 years ago, the crust of the Earth shifted in a way that the continent was displaced. In other words, Antarctica used to be further north, in an area that would have meant much warmer climates and a lot more human inhabitants. After the crust shifted, Antarctica was swept away to the bottom of the world. The theory also says that its residents at the time, the ancient Atlanteans, actually had their cities buried under thick layers of ice and were all but destroyed. Of course, the science of today says this is impossible. There's no way that 12,000 years ago Antarctica was anywhere other than where it is right now. It was definitely part of the supercontinent Gondwana, though this specific giant landmass broke apart over 180 million years ago and split into what is today Antarctica, Australia, South America, and Africa. Most scientists and historians throughout history have come to the conclusion that Plato's record of the lost kingdom of Atlantis was totally fictional. According to this, the Greek philosopher made up Atlantis as his vision of an ideal civilization and intended the story of its demise to be an advisory tale of the gods simply punishing humans. There are no written accounts of Atlantis existing outside of Plato's literature, including in any of the numerous other texts that survive from ancient Greece. And to lend even less credibility to the wild theory, not a single piece of evidence has ever been found that a secret race of Atlanteans even lived here. Number 7. The Doomsday Glacier. Everyone is pretty worried about the polar ice caps melting. People are also worried about the glaciers in Antarctica melting and flooding the world as we know it. There are some out there who claim a Doomsday Glacier is only years away from raising the global sea levels by 3 feet, 1 meter. The actual name of this huge, disastrous piece of ice is the Thwaites Glacier, located on the West Antarctic ice sheet. The glacier is 74,000 square miles, 191,659 kilometers, roughly the size of the state of Florida. It is a huge piece of ice, and doomscrollers are convinced it could very well mean the end of the world. It's one of the biggest and most unstable glaciers on the planet, though the Pine Island Glacier is still melting the fastest as of right now. But before you go throwing an epic end of the world party, take a look at some research published by the University of Michigan. They say the Doomsday Glacier is actually a lot less dangerous than people think, and that the cause for so much concern is false. The researchers have proposed that the glacier is surprisingly stable and shows no sign of imminent collapse. It could stay frozen for the foreseeable future, meaning no dramatic raising of the sea levels. At least, not from this particular glacier. What do you think? Should people really be worried about global warming? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. Number 6. Mysterious Ice Ship. A mysterious ship has been discovered off the coast of Antarctica and nobody knows what it means. The ship was spotted by a curious user on Google Earth. Based on the scale of reference, the ship is about 400 feet, 122 meters in length. How do we know it's a ship? Well, we actually don't really know for sure. We only know that it looks identical to a cruise ship lying on its side. It has a row of windows along its exterior, just like what you see on a modern cruise liner sailing around today. It also seems to have a smokestack. If it's not a ship, it certainly looks an awful lot like one. But just what would a 400-foot, 122-meter ship be doing on its side, completely covered in ice? Where did it come from? There hasn't been a ship matching this description listed as missing. For once, conspiracy theorists are at a loss. It makes no sense. The only thing anyone can say for certain is that if the ship's real, it's definitely part of a strange cover-up. But by which government or organization, and why? Number 5. Hitler's Antarctica. There's a wild theory that says Hitler ordered his men to travel to Antarctica and find an entrance to the inside of the Earth. There is absolutely no evidence that this happened, but the rumors have persisted for the last 70 years. It's said that Hitler knew there was something hiding underneath the Antarctic ice, and he was hell-bent on finding it. Somewhere lost on the continent and covered in ice and snow, there could be a hidden base constructed by Nazis to carry out top-secret research during World War II. It's just that nobody's ever found it. But what happened to these Nazi researchers after Hitler died and the war was over? Well, the second part of the theory says Hitler never died. He faked it, then escaped with a small group of trusted men on board a ship, which they then took all the way to the South Pole to live out the rest of Hitler's days in hiding. Such a preposterous idea started circulating after the end of the war, and in 1952, President Dwight D. Eisenhower said, "We've been unable to unearth one bit of tangible evidence of Hitler's death." Many people believe that Hitler escaped from Berlin. Stalin's top army officer, Marshal Gregory Zhukov, whose troops were actually the very first to enter Berlin, stated after a long and thorough investigation in 1945, "We have found no corpse that could be Hitler's." But is this because Hitler never escaped, or because we just haven't found any proof? Number 4. The walking whale. There's a mythical creature allegedly living in Antarctica that nobody's ever heard of before. Even stranger is that the rumor of this monstrous beast originated thousands of miles away in Japan. It's known today as the Ninjin, and apparently there are quite a few of them. They've been spotted patrolling the icy waters around Antarctica. Eyewitnesses describe them as humanoid, totally white, and able to walk across land and breathe underwater. They've also been described as walking whales. The first sighting came from a Japanese research ship, with those on board witnessing what they thought was a submarine floating in the distance. When they got closer, they realized it was a living animal. It almost looked like a whale until they saw it had a pair of legs. The creature dove into the water and mysteriously vanished without a trace. Between then and now, there have been more unconfirmed reports of Ninjin sightings. There have also been more bizarre descriptions of them, with some experts claiming they are a breed of underwater human-ape hybrids with blubbery skin that only came out at night. Arctic mermaids, maybe? Number 3. Lost civilization. Some shocking claims were made recently that a massive ancient civilization is currently frozen beneath roughly a mile of ice in Antarctica. What's even more shocking is that the claims may actually have merit. You see, NASA allegedly found traces of human settlements buried underneath the ice by using special remote sensing photography as part of something called Operation Icebridge. There was no information released on who could have built an ancient settlement here. However, there's an ancient map known as the Piri Reis map, drawn up by a Turkish admiral in the year 1513 that appears to show Antarctica. The map is highly controversial because the official narrative says that Antarctica was only discovered in 1929. The suggestion here is that back in the 1500s, there was a civilization living on the continent and the old cultures of the world knew it. How it got lost or why scientists don't discuss it today is still a mystery. Number 2. Who found Antarctica first? Speaking of discovering Antarctica, new research has suggested that the coldest continent in the world was actually discovered 1,300 years before Westerners ever reached its freezing shores. According to Live Science, the Polynesians may have explored Antarctica way before Europeans did. The study included assessing oral histories passed down from the ancient Polynesians. One of these oral histories came from the Maori people of New Zealand, who spoke of an explorer named Hui Te Rangiora. His crew apparently voyaged into icy waters farther south than anyone before them. Apparently they did this in the 600s, over 1,400 years before today and over 600 years before the Maori arrived in New Zealand. And it actually makes quite a bit of sense. Polynesia isn't that far from Antarctica, and it wouldn't have been that difficult for a crew of people to get in a boat and start sailing, and accidentally stumble upon what we now know today as Antarctica. Number 1. Hidden alien ship. Yet another insane discovery was made recently in Antarctica thanks to Google Maps. What appears to be an alien ship half frozen under the Antarctic ice was spotted by UFO hunters online, sparking even more theories about an alien presence on the southernmost continent. The UFO in question is a perfect disk visible on Google Earth in an area where nothing else like it can be seen. At first glance, it looks like it could be a rock or maybe a stony outcrop. However, looking closer, you can see that it appears to be artificially made, built in a perfect circle just like a traditional UFO. But just what is it doing here? It almost looks like it crash-landed into the permafrost, which would suggest it did so thousands of years ago before the area was covered in ice, only being revealed from its frozen prison recently due to the planet warming up. Are there still aliens on board? Is it proof of an abandoned alien base beneath the ground? As of right now, seeing as nobody can exactly go down there and check it out, we simply don't have the answers. Thanks for watching. Which of these conspiracies do you think could be true? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed the video for more awesome content right here on American Eye.